Hey guys, welcome to the show. Today I have a special guest. His name is Luke Detraz. He's the founder of an organization called Field and Faith. And the goal of this organization is to break the cycle of fatherlessness through mentorship and outdoor activities, guiding young men to become leaders in their families and communities. And it's all based on biblical principles. And I'm excited to talk to him about this organization and to see what the fruit of it is and what some of the cool stories are. So please welcome Luke Detraz.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good to have you on. So before we get into what Field and Faith is all about, could you tell us kind of your background, which obviously informed why you're doing this now, but get into what happened to you as a child and so on.
Yeah, this opportunity became part of my testimony and kind of where I came from. So I came from a broken home. My mom had been married multiple times prior to my father and her getting married. She had two kids from a previous marriage. Alcoholic, abusive guys kind of ran through her past, unfortunately, and my dad was no different. He struggled with alcohol abuse quite a bit. He was never physically abusive to my mom, but the alcohol definitely took its toll on him and some of the situations they had arise. And he was type 1 diabetic, ended up getting heart disease from it. He never took care of himself. So when they finally separated when I was 3 years old, after they actually went through having a kid themselves together, and it died after he was born.
Hmm.
They just went through a lot of heartache. They were together for 10 years and just a lot of up and downs, and finally separated after things just got really bad. My mom moved out, took my brother, my sister, and me, and got a small little house in North Phoenix with my grandmother, this little 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom with 5 of us. And we kind of made life work. She slept on the couch most of my childhood, which is really like a cool thing to look back on, of the things that she was willing to do for us kids. But every other weekend I would go to my dad's house. He wasn't able to take care of himself or hold a job because of his diabetes. So he was disabled, and he lived with my grandmother, my other grandmother. And so every time I'd go over there, it was, hey, dad's passing out again because he didn't take his insulin shots. He wasn't watching his blood sugar. So we find him passed out on the chair or on the couch or in his room. So it was constant of, oh, go grab some honey and feed it to him right away to get him to wake up again. And then
Hmm.
watch him have a heart attack, and the paramedics and trucks coming and getting him out of there, and just seeing him in the hospital and stuff. It was really hard. Um, and when you're a 6, 7-year-old kid, you don't really understand what's actually happening. And then he finally ended up passing away when I was 8 years old, which for an 8-year-old, you don't truly understand death at that point or what that actually means. And that was kind of the start of everything for me.
And so
We
how did that kind of shape you in terms of, high school and stuff? Like how did that affect you?
Yeah, it wasn't really until high school until all the demons started coming out. Just all the hurt and everything that came along with it. I was a big sports kid, so not having your dad at the games, and at that time, it was pretty normal for parents to be married still and to have a father around, and I was one of the few kids that didn't. So it hurt quite a bit knowing that my father wasn't going to be at my games and had all these experiences, and so by the time I was 13, 14, I started drinking just because it was a fun thing to do. And then it became more than just a fun thing. And my idea of life was the things that you see on TV, the dads that you see on the TV and the experience, the high school experience. And I wanted to be the popular kid and just trying to navigate that. So then it turned into partying and drugs and rock and roll. And I started doing a lot of drugs, and the depression just kept getting worse. And school started falling apart. And then I eventually, when I was 16, tried to kill myself just because
Wow.
I couldn't do it anymore.
And so how did your mother react to that?
She actually didn't know. She
Hmm.
just recently found that out. I was pretty good about hiding everything. I tried to do it at school. I don't understand why I tried to do it there, but that's just the place that I chose to do it. I tried to OD, and God saved me in that moment. And it was actually really frustrating for me as a kid
And so
because,
yeah, go ahead.
oh yeah. So one of the pieces of this is I grew up in the church. So my mom
Hmm.
used the church to kind of raise us kids, because we were a little rambunctious, all of us were. And so we live right down the street from a big church, which is Dream City, which used to be Phoenix First Assembly. And so it was Sunday school, Sunday service, Sunday night service, youth group, anything she could put us into, we went to it. And so my idea of God was this, this guy out in the middle of nowhere that just, hey, you follow the rules, and if you don't, you get burned for it. And so I was mad when I tried to kill myself and I didn't succeed, because it was like, hey, I'm trying to do something. Like, you clearly aren't helping me out. So I'm trying to go. I don't want to do this anymore. And so after that point, I went after it of like, okay, God, if you really want me this bad, let's see how far you're willing to go. It was one of those Gideon moments. And from 16 to 20, I did everything that I possibly could, of just being crazy, and drugs and alcohol and partying and driving reckless, and till I finally got arrested when I was 20 after multiple incidents with the police. And that moment was kind of the reshaping of my life, because my mom actually had to drop me off from my sentence, and to be able to see her face and all the hurt that I put into her was really the kind of the shaky moment of my life.
Wow. And so when did you come to actually faith in Christ? Like, when was that moment that changed things?
So it was always off and on again. Through high school, it was, youth group on Tuesdays, where I'd be at the altar every Tuesday night from partying the night before and asking God to forgive me. And then, to me, it was, okay, well, I can party all I want, and then I can just ask for forgiveness afterwards. And then, so it really wasn't much. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't really understand anything. And then after, getting arrested and going through all the stuff that I had to go through with the courts and legal stuff, I got back into church and started reading the Bible for myself, and stopped listening to whoever was speaking or whatever pastor was speaking, to actually trying to understand the words for myself and actually have that relationship versus just hearing it.
And that worked.
It worked.
Obviously.
Yeah, it worked. It took a little while, but I had little moments, I was at rock bottom, and I kept seeing little glimpses of hope and miracles kind of pop up in my life. And during this time of getting back into church, I met my wife, which was a God thing, because I had met her during my reckless years and she wanted nothing to do with me. And then out of the blue, I get a text message from this girl going, hey, how are you doing? And I had no numbers. I had nothing saved, and I instantly knew it was her. And I was in this place of just peace and calm. And within 6 months of dating, I proposed, and we were married 6 months later.
Wow. And do you have kids now?
Yeah, we've been married for 14 years, and we have 3 kids together.
Wow. Um, and so, so, uh, let's talk about why Faith and Field? How did this idea come to you, and what's it all about?
So it was really just the years of experience of my own life. So kind of rewatching my childhood and my teenage years and seeing where some of the issues were, and then started getting into ministry in my church. I was part of our youth ministry for a little bit. I led our college ministry. I was part of our men's ministry, and just really seeing my story within a lot of other people's stories, and realizing that there was just something bigger and more here. And when I was doing the college ministry part, I just had all these 19, 20-year-old guys coming up to me going, hey man, you hunt. My dad doesn't do that. Or my dad didn't teach me how to do that. Hey, you fish. Will you teach me how to do that? I was like, yeah, of course, that's a fun thing to do, man. I would love to go do that. Like, we get to do a church outing and go shoot guns and go fishing and stuff, like right up my alley. And so we started just doing that kind of stuff with guys. And then the reality was, when we were doing men's retreats and that kind of stuff, it was the same thing with 25, 30-year-old guys, 40-year-old guys. Of like, yeah, my dad wasn't around. He was a drunk. He was this. He worked all the time. So I don't know these skills. I don't know how to work on a car. I don't know how to be a man or a dad or a husband or a father. And just having these conversations. And I had a good friend of mine where me and him were just like walking out in the desert and just talking about the stuff of like, man, these divorce rates are through the roof. There's these kids walking through life not understanding how to be a man. Being a man is the hardest job that you could possibly have. So how do we fix this? How do we help people? And the outdoors has always been the safe place for me. So how can I show what I know with the Bible and put it together?
And so what are some of the things, I mean, besides, you mentioned some of the things, but what are the outdoor things you do? And where do you go to do this? And how many people are involved in it?
So some of the activities we do, one of the things is like with Boy Scouts, when Boy Scouts originally started, it was this Christ-based, it was very outdoorsy, and then it turned into popcorn sales and all this other stuff, and it went too far off the deep end.
Yeah.
So I never wanted this to be anything like that. It was meant to be a men's ministry, this all-encompassing community for guys. And trying to teach people in Arizona how to do outdoor stuff is really difficult because you can watch a TV show and you see these guys on the East Coast, and shooting deer is like shooting fish in a bucket because they're a pest on the East Coast. But in Arizona, it's hills and mountains and hiking and a lot of work, and a lot of the times you don't get anything. So trying to teach people how to do these things is a little bit more intentional. And what I wanted to do with this is, what are some of the skills that kids are lacking nowadays? It's resilience and it's confidence.
Yeah.
And in the outdoor space,
especially young men and young boys, like they completely lack, because they're, I mean, they're just like tied to their phone and they're told that they're toxic all the time. So yeah.
100%. Yeah. And the outdoors, looking at some of like the stuff that Montessori schools use, they use wood toys specifically. And this is because there's a natural cause and effect with wood. It's the same thing with the outdoors. There's a natural cause and effect. There's no cheat code. There's no way of getting out of it. You're in the outdoors and you're going to learn. And there's a confidence and a resilience that's naturally built when you're outside.
Wait, what's the deal with wood toys? What does that do?
Yeah, so Montessori schools use wood toys because there's a natural cause and effect. There's a natural weight and density component to them, as well as there's a warming sensation when you actually hold those toys in your hand versus plastic or metal toys.
I love that.
Yeah, so we've done so many studies and research on like what works and what doesn't and what makes sense and how does the brain function and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of my nerdy. I wanted to know how to do all this kind of stuff properly, but so
yeah.
So one of the big things that we try to teach is stewardship, right? So in Genesis, we're called to have dominion over this earth, but realistically, it's more of a stewardship aspect of that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we teach is how do you be a steward of yourself, your community, and the world around you. And so part of that is when we take them out for an outing, like specifically, we took them quail hunting over the fall. So when we take them quail hunting, some of the parts is like, okay, we're actually going to take you out in an area where we hunt quail. We're going to teach you everything there is to know about quail, conservation, habitats, food, everything start to finish. The way they talk to each other, because we want you to be a good steward of these animals, actually have an appreciation. Like, I love quail. I have quail tattooed on my arm. There's a love and appreciation that goes with hunting. And so we teach them gun safety. They don't actually get to shoot. So we have our guys out there shooting and doing all that kind of stuff, but trying to teach them gun safety on top of that. Now we're harvesting our birds. Now we're actually breaking down our birds and teaching them how the process of actually going through that. And then we're teaching them how to cook it, because from start A to B to C, we want to teach them everything they need to know about actually how to go into the field and do these things.
That's awesome. I need to I need to come take do a thing with you guys. I need to learn how to hunt. And my dad actually took me hunting one time. I remember it was deer hunting. I was in an elementary school, probably like 7th grade or something. And it was crazy because my dad was kind of like, I mean, he worked all the time and I was the youngest of 8 kids, so he wasn't really around much, and or there wasn't a lot of interaction between us. So I think he was like, oh, let me take Beckett hunting and try and like build this relationship. And I just remember it was just like 4 o'clock in the morning. We had to go to this, what are they called, when you deer hunt, it's like you go
the
to
blinds.
Blinds, yeah.
The blind, yeah.
And I saw a deer and I was like, oh my God. And I was about to shoot, but I stopped because at that time I was just too kind of like sensitive to do it. But now I would love to go hunting because I don't know anything about it really. And so what kind of things, well, first of all, how often do you do these events and how many people are involved?
So we're doing these events once a month, and they range from, we try to create what we call the overall outdoorsman. So we're doing stuff from hunting to fishing to camping. And then we have it broken up to where it's every other month, we're doing some sort of outing like that specifically. And then the other months in between, we actually do a hike and a Bible study.
And this is
So
all in Arizona.
yeah, all in Arizona.
And do people fly in? Do people come in to do this, or is it all kind of locals?
No, just all local. So all the kids that we have in our program currently are from the churches that we've been able to speak at. We just really recently released a high school program, which has been going incredibly well. We're actually going into the high schools and doing some of these skill trainings with the kids twice a month during their lunch breaks.
That's
And
cool.
so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun to go into such a place that's so dark nowadays. To be able to
I
bring some
know.
life has been awesome.
I know. So what are some of the, can you tell us some of the stories of, what's happened, like how it's helped men or young men, some of these activities and the Field and Faith?
Yeah, yeah. I have one kid that he's like our poster child because he's so incredible and such a good kid. And seeing him, I've known him for years. He was one of the very first kids to join up with us and just the most timid and quiet and scared kid. He spent most of his days on his cell phone, social media, like 10 hours a day. Um,
Did he
his
have a
mom works.
father?
Yeah, his father left when I think he was like 2 or 3
Oh,
and
okay.
hasn't talked to him since. His mom works multiple jobs trying to pay for everything 6 days a week. He's got an older brother that just plays video games and goes to work and has zero interaction. And so he showed up on our very first one, which was a hike and Bible study. And come to find out, once we got to the top, getting ready to do our Bible studies, deathly afraid of bugs. And which we're in the out the door when you're in the outdoors, it's just there's bugs everywhere. And he had a butterfly laying on his shoulder and like lost his mind, almost
Oh
tripped
my
and fell
God.
down the mountain. And I'm like, the insurance isn't this good. Like, come on. So to be able to watch him grow and like within 6 months, we did our quail hunt. And when you're doing quail hunt, you're walking through the desert. There's high grass, there's snakes, there's bugs, there's all kinds of stuff. And he had zero fear of the snakes, which I thought the second I told him, hey, we're going to walk slow because there's snakes and this and that. And it didn't phase him. Being around the guns and the gunshots, it didn't phase him. And then it was time to process the birds. And he started pulling birds apart and wasn't squeamish, wasn't nervous, wasn't scared, asking questions. Hey, do I do it like this? Do I do it like that? Kind of be more vocal. And then he kept going through this. And then a couple weeks later, we were on a hunt and just talked to him about grades and stuff, right? Trying to figure out our own little internal surveys of how are we doing, how's the feedback, that kind of stuff. And started talking to him. He goes, yeah, I'm doing track now and I have straight A's. And we're all just like, wait, you straight A's? How did that happen, man? When we first started this, you said you had like F's and D's and everything, and you were on your phone all day and this. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm not using my phone as much, and I'm doing track and I have straight A's now. I'm like, dude, this is amazing. Like, this is all like we've been telling you for months and months now. Just put your phone down for a little bit.
Yeah.
And to be able to see that firsthand it's such a cool experience. And some of our mentors too. Some of these guys, like one of the guys has 2 daughters, and so for him to be able to come out and just hang out with a bunch of guys has been such a blessing on him. And now he's actually wanting to hunt. And he's never hunted before. So,
Wow. And what's the typical size of the group that you go out with?
so it ranges. Sports schedules and that kind of stuff has been really hindering on us. We have anywhere up to 12. Our high school programs are at 18 now. But yeah, it's just a wide variety of how many we have. So we're trying to get into the community as much as we can to get more kids. And I know the summertime we're kind of gearing up because I think we're going to get overloaded a little bit. So.
And you're doing are you starting to do work with foster kids as well?
Yeah, so that's part of our program as well. We went after our demographics fatherless kids. So that kind of means all areas. My wife works in foster care and adoption and has for the past 12 years. So that was a piece of it. We do a lot of foster camps where our team helps out. We do a lot of skills trainings as well with some of those kids for like separate events and stuff. So
Nice. Yeah, I mean, even in my own life, because you know, I don't know if you know much my story, but we won't get into all of it. But and I've always been kind of like an indoor person. Because when I was growing up, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and it was so hot all the time in the summer. It was just like so hot. I hated going outside. So I was kind of like always indoors, and I wasn't, kind of active in sports. But in the last, I don't know, several years, I've started to really appreciate the outdoors. And like I go on bike rides all the time now, and I used to go walking all the time, but now it's more biking. And it's amazing how just, and especially in LA, like it's today is like the most gorgeous day ever. It's like 74 and sunny and breezy and perfect. And it's amazing, like just mentally how healthy it is. Like every time I go on a bike ride and like the sun, I get the sun and like, you know, I come back home and I just feel totally great. I feel great after it. I'm like, I need to do this all the time. So it's like it's such a just mentally with these kids who are going through so much with social media and TikTok and all this crazy stuff. It's so important for them to get outside and to put their phones down, get outside, put their feet in the grass, and you know, and experience and have that experience. I think it's so important.
Well, it's to me, it's biblical, you know, like when God made man, he literally scooped up the earth and breathed life into it. And it's how do we have more better experiences with God? It's like you have to spend time with God in creation, you know, in the outdoors and in those places.
Yeah, yeah. It's you know, it's I've always been a city boy, so it's like a little bit hard, but uh my brothers love, you know, going hiking in the Colorado mountains. And I my brother one of my brothers took me when I was a kid. I think I was like, you know, sixth or seventh grade, eighth grade, but he took me to Colorado on this trip with my a couple other brothers, and we went hiking for 10 days, like without stopping. I mean, we stopped to sleep at night, but then we would wake up and we would, you know, we were at like at this top of this crazy, we were at the highest level you could be like legally in Colorado. And I remember we would go fishing and catch trout, and then we would cook it and have it for dinner. Like it was, and I remember as tough as it kind of was on me, because I was a sensitive kid. I wasn't really an outdoorsy guy. I remembered that period because we did it twice, 2 years in a row. We went for 10 days. And I remember like sleeping in tents, which is another thing that is like not my thing, but sleeping in my tent even one night when we got to this one destination, it was pouring rain. I mean, just pouring rain on our tents. And during these whole kind of trips, I never felt more uh like at peace. Like I felt it was so relaxing and peaceful, and it was just really good for me to do that. And I don't know why I don't do it more, but but I can see that how helpful that is to kids and to young men.
Yeah, just I mean, just watching your face when you're telling that story, man, you lit up, and it's just that's what it does. It brings life to people that are often dead inside sometimes, you know, just being out there. It brings peace, it brings solitude, it brings a quietness where you can actually hear the Lord speak to you. And you just got to get out. Even if you're in the city, there's places to go. Even just riding your bike outside, it's healthy.
And so are all of these kids or are all young men, are they all Christians, or are they some of them seeking? And like when you do the Bible studies, is it how does that work?
So we don't ever force anything upon anybody. So we try to just get them engaged and just talk and open up about questions as much as possible. For the most part, they're all believers or kind of newly into it and kind of seeking. So we just keep it as open and honest as possible and try to get to their level, right? So that's why we love the high school program, because it's just we meet them where they're at, and we don't force anything down their throats, and we just kind of just be there and just sit with them and talk with them about whatever they want to talk.
Yeah. Um and so and then I think it costs what, like $1,000 to support one young man through the program. Uh tell us about that. How does that work and what does that cover?
Yeah, so realistically, we say the program lasts 2 years, you know, for you to become like what we think an outdoorsman should be and learning all the skills and going through our 12 traits of what a godly man looks like. It takes about 2 years. So yeah, that's where the $1,000 comes in. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that every kid could come. So there was no issues with sleeping bags or food or transportation. So we literally supply everything start to finish. If they don't have hiking boots, we buy them hiking boots. If they need a jacket, we buy them a jacket. Like it's so we try to supply them with everything as possible. So that way there's no kid left behind.
And is there, so I mean, obviously people might watch, after watching this video, they might want their kids to do it, but they might be in other states. So would they be able to come to Arizona and do that? Or is that a whole next chapter?
That'll probably be a next chapter. We're not expanding that fast. We just expanded substantially the last couple months. So eventually, I'd love to see this go national. I don't, that's not my desire and dreams. My desire is to help men, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good program. Uh, we do some of that at my church. It's called I think it's called Royal Bible Camp. And a bunch of guys and leaders and take foster kids on this camping trip, basically for a week, and they do all these activities, and it's all paid for by the church. So and it's so helpful to these kids, and it really changes them. So I mean, I think this is so important because, as you said, the divorce rate is out of control. People are just being raised by their iPhones, and no father really is around. And I think this is so important for young men and young boys to do, because it does, as you said, like when you gave the illustration of the one kid, like it really does change you.
Yeah, just like what we talked about in the beginning, it's like the confidence and resilience. We don't teach that with men. It's like look at suicide rates nowadays. You would see alcohol and substance abuse as like the top killers of men. It's like, no, it's suicide now because guys aren't taught how to be confident and resilient in life. Life's hard.
Yeah.
But when you learn how to like cope and how to deal with it and know that Jesus is right behind you at all times, it's like, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah. So tell people how they can find you. Where should they go?
Yeah, check us out at fieldfaith.org. We are a men's community, so we do have programs for kids 13 to 17, and we just launched an 18 and over program for men as well. We do a podcast as well for guys' issues. We call it the Campfire Stories because it's me and my best friend, we sit around and talk like we're sitting around a campfire, sharing things we're struggling with, things of our faith. We share outdoor stories. We do hunting and fishing, faith-based merch. We're kind of a one-stop community. That's where we're trying to be.
Nice. Well, Luke, thank you for coming on and telling us about this. And yeah, we need more of this. Let's make it national.
Thanks. I hope so. Someday, maybe. We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. And guys, we will see you next time on the show.